Hey everyone, Marvin here, and welcome back to Buddy Up Gaming. Terra Invicta is a deep, demanding 4X strategy game built around a fascinating question. How would humanity actually respond to the discovery of a hostile, technologically superior alien force? It's an incredibly complex game, but once you understand how its systems fit together, the way those systems interlocked can be absolutely gripping. In our Jupiter Rush series, we cover in full detail the optimal strategy for gaining an early edge against the true Goliath of this game, the aliens. In Part 3, we covered the bare minimum infrastructure and technology required to send a ship to Jupiter. In this video, we're shifting focus to what comes next, how to expand your infrastructure once you've acquired control of the USA. Grabbing a second research nation becomes a top priority at this stage, both to reduce the time it takes to research the technologies and projects required for the Jupiter Rush, and to support all of the additional tech we'll need to defend our growing holdings on both Jupiter and Earth. There are several viable candidates for a second research nation. Check out our nations video if you want a full breakdown, but personally, I prefer to target China, as it has extremely high research potential that's relatively easy to fulfill once you're established. That said, controlling China is considerably harder than controlling the USA early in a run. For starters, your control point cap won't be nearly high enough to tackle this 200+ point monster. We'll raise that cap primarily by completing several key projects, but in the near term, a lot of progress will come from acquiring organizations that increase persuasion and administration. With that in mind, after securing your first two global research priorities and assigning them to advanced chemical rocketry and outpost HABs, your third priority should focus on technologies that increase the number of organizations available on the market. If you're playing as the initiative, aim for arrival economics to unlock arrival markets and capitalization. For every other faction, choose arrival domestic politics to unlock the institutional research project. Completing any of these projects adds 5 new organizations to the market each month, dramatically increasing your chances of finding high-quality orgs for your councilors. While this doesn't directly advance your Jupiter timeline, the power spike from improving your councilors more than makes up for the temporary research detour. Your first focus should be maxing out the administration stat of your tech mogul. If you also have a councilor who can reliably investigate rival councilors, you can begin targeting them for the admin and persuasion organizations their factions have likely collected by this point. It's important to do this early, while rival councilors still have relatively low admin stats, making hostile takeovers far easier to execute. Finding councilors with valuable organizations mostly comes down to luck, but you can reduce some of that randomness by checking the factions panel. As long as you have visibility into the resources tab, divide a faction's control point cap by the number of councilors they have. Target factions with a higher ratio. That excess cap may come from councilors with strong base stats, but just as often, it's from powerful organizations worth stealing. You should also prioritize purchasing or stealing science organizations for your tech mogul, especially ones that boost space science or social science research. When they aren't running hostile takeovers, your tech mogul should be advising the USA. A high administration stat increases how many investment points can be allocated to knowledge each turn, and a high science stat further boosts national research output. You'll need to increase your control point cap by roughly 40 points just to secure your first control point in China. In a 2022 start, we won't actually run control nation missions until we have enough buffer to reliably take 2 points. In this scenario, China's second control point provides a massive 3-point bonus to control nation missions, which more than offsets the bonuses we get from neighboring countries that will now abandon to stay under the cap. If you're playing with a 2026 start though, the second control point no longer confers the same bonus, so go ahead and grab that first control point as soon as you've raised your cap enough to do it safely. As you push your cap toward the required threshold, start acquiring other nations along the way. prioritize targets suited for spoils, as well as nations neighboring China to improve your control nation success chances. Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan are excellent examples that satisfy both conditions. More generally, prioritize nations that offer a strong return on investment, specifically those that generate high spoils per investment point and have a favorable investment point to control point ratio. Councilor stat improvements alone won't get your control point cap high enough to fully control China, so you'll also need to complete several specific projects. Once you finish researching one of your major technology milestones, mission to Jupiter, industrialization of space, or your drive project, prioritize independence movements and advanced neural networks to unlock 2 projects that each give a massive 40-point cap increase. If you're playing as the Resistance or Humanity First, you should also rush your faction's unique project, which provides another 40-point boost plus additional cap from the associated faction organization. On top of that, several inexpensive social science technologies with the arrival prefix unlock projects that each add 10 control points, and those stack up quickly. Once your control point cap is finally high enough to make a serious push into China, you'll quickly notice how much harder public campaign and control nation missions become. China's massive economy increases mission difficulty right out of the gate. Larger neighboring nations like Russia and Pakistan are often already controlled, which reduces your neighboring nation bonuses. On top of that, early game traits like opinion leader and media darling, which were incredibly effective in the USA, provide no bonuses in China. Altogether, your high persuasion councilor needs to be significantly stronger than when they took the USA. In my own runs, I typically didn't see consistent success until that persuasion stat hit around 20. Pushing persuasion that high also unlocks another major advantage, turning rival councilors. Once your persuasion hits 15 or higher, you should strongly consider running turn councilor missions to penetrate rival factions and directly inspect their organization loadouts. This is far more efficient than blindly investigating random councilors and hoping to find something valuable. The difficulty of turning a councilor depends on their loyalty and the ideological distance between your faction and theirs. As the Resistance, for example, turning a Humanity First councilor is much easier than targeting the Servants or Protectorate. By contrast, the Academy's more moderate ideology smooths out those ideological gaps, making it easier to turn councilors no matter which faction they belong to. From here, we apply many of the same strategies used when taking the USA. After securing your first control point in China, dump investment points into Unity to push public opinion in your favor and improve your odds on future control nation missions. Once public support is high enough, switch China to max knowledge with a few pips in welfare. China's research output will quickly eclipse that of the USA. So as you approach the cap needed to take all 6 control points, you should redirect the USA's investment points towards mission control. By the time your ship reaches Jupiter, you'll need enough mission control to support 5 to 6 mines, a small defensive fleet, and several stations in LEO, or low Earth orbit. There's no hard minimum, but I usually aim for around 30 mission control, and will keep the USA focused there until most LEO slots are filled with orbitals. We'll talk in a later episode about how and when to rebalance those investments. One of the more recent additions to the game's setup options is the ability to enable an early alien invasion fleet. And if you turn this on for a Jupiter Rush run, you're in for a surge of excitement right around this point in the timeline. With this option enabled, the aliens begin the game with 3 carriers capable of landing ground troops, and they'll arrive at Earth about a year after your start date. Right around the same time, you're making your push to expand control into China. You absolutely want to prevent the aliens from forming a nation on Earth. Once that happens, their armies become absurdly strong, and for once the servants actually become a real headache, happily handing over their holdings to the alien nation whenever they get the chance. The good news is that the initial alien armies are vulnerable for about a month while they're in the process of landing. The standard way to deal with them is to identify their landing zones while the carriers are still descending. If you can move your armies into position ahead of time, the alien forces will begin the fight at half health, and your US armies should have no trouble wiping them out. Unfortunately, this approach is fairly unreliable. It only works if you're allied with, or at war with, the nations where the aliens choose to land. If you don't have access, you simply can't pre-position your armies to intercept them. And if even one of the 3 landing groups touches down at full strength, you won't be able to stop it. At that point, the alien nation forms, and things get messy very quickly. The far simpler and far more reliable solution is to lean into the United States' generous nuclear arsenal and solve the problem the loud way. Unlike human armies, alien forces require 1 nuke per army, so you need to plan accordingly. Make sure your investment points are fully committed to unity beforehand, because you're going to take a massive public opinion hit from the enthusiastic use of nuclear weapons. At this point, you should have a clear roadmap for expanding your Earth-side infrastructure after securing the USA, bringing China online as a second research powerhouse, and ramping up mission control so your Jupiter expansion doesn't stall out. In the next episode, we'll shift our attention back to space. We'll cover which weapon technologies you should prioritize before arriving at Jupiter, how to get set up once your ship makes it there, and ship designs for your very first defensive fleet. This is where Jupiter Rush stops being theoretical and starts turning into a real fight. And that's where your run gets especially fun. If you found this guide helpful, be sure to like the video, subscribe to Buddy Up Gaming, and stick around for the next installment as we take our final step toward reaching Jupiter. Take care out there.